Welcome to Dying Isn't Romantic, where we get real about living with dying. I'm your host, Dina Hamilton. In episode 5, The S Word, we'll have a serious discussion about suicide and depression. Yesterday, someone I know lost their young adult son to suicide. So how does that fit my podcast format? Simple, and we really need to understand this. Depression is a potentially fatal disease, and it affects all of us whether we realize it or not. I want to start out by giving you a few statistics from the CDC concerning suicide. Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the U.S. for all ages. Every day, approximately 123 Americans die by suicide. There is one death by suicide in the U.S. every 12 minutes. Depression affects 20 to 25% of Americans ages 18 and up in a given year. Suicide takes the lives of over 44,965 Americans every year. The highest suicide rates in the U.S. are amongst whites, American Indians, and Alaskan Natives. Though I would like to qualify that doesn't mean that anyone is exempt. Only half of all Americans experiencing an episode of major depression receive treatment. 80 to 90% of people that do seek treatment for depression are treated successfully using therapy and/or medication. An estimated 250,000 people each year become suicide survivors. There is one suicide for every estimated 25 attempts, and that rate goes up in our elderly to one suicide in every 4 attempts. So what can we do? Let's start by removing the stigma from depression and suicide. A good place to start is understanding what depression is and isn't. Depression isn't something to be ashamed of. Depression isn't just a big pity party. Depression isn't attention seeking. It isn't just in your head. It isn't something you can just suck up, man up, and get over. What depression is a very complex medical and psychological condition. We often oversimplify this condition by either attributing it to a chemical imbalance in the brain or conditions in that person's life. The thing is, both are somewhat correct, but only a small part of the puzzle. There are many other factors, such as the brain's inability to regulate moods, genetics, medications, and other health conditions. Scientists do know that trauma tends to, what we say, rewire the brain or change the brain's chemistry. This in itself can lead to depression. One of the most misunderstood elements of depression is the fact that you can be depressed even when your life is great. We tend to make the assumption that depression is in response to something. It isn't always. We need to understand the true nature of depression is that it is the great deceiver. It can turn lies into truth and truths into lies. Hopefully, understanding these simple truths about depression and about suicide will help us be better and do better about treating people like there's something wrong with them, like they're the disease. Like they just have a problem and need to suck it up. Like they're embarrassing. Like their depression is something to be ashamed of. I want you to really listen right now, because depression is a disease. Nobody goes out and decides to be depressed. It's not a decision. So why do we blame depressed people for being depressed? Do we tell people with cancer, well, it's all your fault, you need to try harder? No, we tell them they need help and they need support, and we do everything we can do to be there for them. Another point I really want to drive home for those people who are left in the wake of a suicide: it is not your fault. The young man I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast came from a good family, had loving and supportive parents who I know did everything they could to be there for their son. But sometimes this disease is bigger than any of us can handle. And sometimes, even with treatment, the outcome is not good. They say 80 to 90% that seek treatment have a positive outcome and can live a long, healthy life with depression. But what about that 10 to 20%? They're not failures. We're not failures. It just means we need to work harder to give a voice to these voiceless people out there who are suffering. Let them know that it's okay not to be okay, and that if they need someone to listen, or just someone to drive them to an appointment, whatever, we're here. We need to give this disease, this scourge, the same voice and attention that we give every other disease. We need more research. I'm not even sure what all we need. But maybe, just maybe, it starts with me. It starts with you. It starts with changing our thinking. It starts with us not assuming that everyone is okay because they don't seem down. How about we assume that nobody is okay and everybody needs to hear how wonderful they are, and they're loved, and they've got a friend, and they've got an ear if they ever need it, and a shoulder if they need it. How about we just simply be kinder and gentler in a world that isn't? This disease is hard enough. Let's not make it harder by being unkind, by saying unkind things about people who are depressed. Or worse, by pretending it doesn't exist, by ignoring them because it's too hard to deal with someone that's always down. No, my friends, what's hard is reading or hearing about someone who had their whole life ahead of them and could have made such a difference in this world, who ended their life because of this horrible disease. We need to stop it with the excuses. Stop telling ourselves it's not about us. This doesn't involve us. Like I keep saying, it involves all of us. I guarantee that every one of you listening has had a brush with suicide and depression. Maybe not directly, but you know someone who's depressed. You know someone who knows someone who is depressed. You know someone who lost someone to suicide. Maybe one of your loved ones committed suicide. Maybe you're still thinking of it as a betrayal. It's not. They have no more control over this disease than someone has over cancer. They can seek treatment in many ways. But they did not do this. And for those of you out there who are suffering, please, please, please seek help. My heart has grown weary of this disease winning. This should be the cry of every single person in this country and in this world. Can I cure depression? No. But I can do something. And right now, this is my something. My voice. My cry to the rest of the world that this is not okay and we need to do better. This is my something. Your something may not be the same as mine, but you can find a something. Please find a something, because doing nothing is costing us lives, precious, precious lives. And I really want to drive this point home to those out there suffering from depression, to those who have paid the ultimate cost of depression and lost a loved one. I care. I'm here. I will be your voice for as long as you need me to be. You matter to me. I am also begging everyone to educate yourself about suicide and about depression and other related mental disorders. We cannot fight what we don't understand. At this point in the podcast, I'm usually asking you to email me or go to my website. But you know what? Right now, that's just not important. Right now, all I'm asking is that today you're kind to somebody. Today you tell someone you love them, or that you care, or you just do something nice for somebody. Our world is suffering. Please do your part to make it suffer just a little bit less today. Thank you so much for listening. This has been Dina Hamilton with Dying Isn't Romantic.
You've been listening to Dying Isn't Romantic with Dina Hamilton. If you're finding it hard to cope mentally or emotionally, please reach out to your primary care physician for a referral to a mental health professional, or reach out to your faith leader for counseling if you are more comfortable. If you're having thoughts of suicide or self-harming, please call the National Suicide Hotline at 1-800-273-8255. That's 1-800-273-8255. This is Ray Hamilton. Please join Dina the next time for another episode of Dying Isn't Romantic.